Today, we're going to talk about something that's basically like creating a master blueprint, but for a digital skyscraper. It's called structured systems analysis, and it's all about one simple idea: planning before you build. I mean, that's kind of a trick question, right? Of course not. You wouldn't even think about it. You just know it would be an absolute disaster. The foundation would be a mess, nothing would line up, and the whole thing would be a catastrophe waiting to happen. Well, believe it or not, that's pretty much what was happening in the early days of software. People were trying to build these massive, complex digital structures with no real plan. It was total chaos, and it led to something they actually called the software crisis. So, how do we get a handle on all this? Well, here's our game plan for today. We're going to look at the problem, the solution that came along, how to actually read the plans, the process for making them, and then we'll get real about the pros and cons. So let's jump in. First up, we got to understand the why behind all this. Before these structured methods, making software was, well, it was kind of a wild west. It was unpredictable, messy, and a lot of projects just failed. People were desperate for a better way to get from a vague idea to a system that actually worked. And this is where structured systems analysis, or SSA, comes into the picture. Now, this isn't about code or servers or anything like that. It's a disciplined way to figure out exactly what a system is supposed to do, who it's for, and what information it needs, all before anyone even thinks about writing code. It's the process of making that blueprint we've been talking about. Okay, so how does SSA actually do that? How does it create this blueprint? Well, it gives everyone a framework and a common language to create a plan that is super clear, totally logical, and leaves no room for confusion. The idea is that everyone, from the clients to the coders, is looking at the same set of plans. And if you look at the goals here, it's pretty clear what they were trying to fix. You've got understanding what's there now, getting crystal clear requirements, mapping out how data moves, breaking down huge problems into smaller, bite-sized pieces. It's all about building a rock-solid foundation for the designers and developers. And it all comes down to a few core ideas. It's top-down, meaning you start with the big picture and then drill down into the nitty-gritty details. It's modular, which is just a fancy way of saying you break a big, scary problem into smaller, manageable chunks. And critically, it's all about diagrams and focusing on the logical what. What does the system need to do, not the technical how. Okay, so if we've got this blueprint, what does it actually look like? How do you even read the thing? Well, just like an architect has symbols for doors, windows, and walls, a systems analyst has their own set of diagrams to map everything out. Here are the main tools in the toolbox. You've got diagrams that show data moving around, other diagrams to show how different pieces of data are connected, a central dictionary that defines every single term so there's no confusion, and detailed descriptions of what every little part of the system actually does. It's all about leaving nothing to chance. But out of all of these, there's one that's really the star of the show. It's the most famous part of structured analysis, and it's called the data flow diagram, or DFD. Think of it as the master map of the system's information highway. And the cool thing is, a DFD is actually made up of just 4 simple parts. Seriously, that's it. You have processes, which are like little factories that change data. You have data flows, which are the pipes that carry the data. You have data stores, which are basically the filing cabinets. And you have external entities, the people or other systems that are the start and end points of the data. Simple, right? All right, so we've got the tools. We know what a DFD is, but how do you actually go from some messy, real-world business problem to one of these clean, logical blueprints? Well, as you'd expect, there's a very structured, step-by-step process for that too. And the process itself, well, it just makes sense. First, you figure out what you're even working with. Then you define what success looks like for the new system. You gather all the info you can, and then you build those visual models, the DFDs, and so on. Those models make it easy to nail down every single requirement before you wrap it all up in a formal proposal. So what do you get at the very end of all this work? You get one single master document, the System Requirements Specification, or SRS. This is the blueprint. This is the single source of truth that you hand over to the developers so they can build the right thing the first time. But look, let's be real. No system is perfect, right? And this detailed upfront planning, well, it has some massive strengths, but also some real drawbacks you need to know about. So on the one hand, its biggest win is clarity. The detailed plans are fantastic for taming really complex systems, and they make sure everyone is on the same page. The flip side? All that planning takes a lot of time, which makes it a really tough fit for today's fast-moving agile projects. It's also way more focused on data than on the slick user experience people expect now. And you kind of need some highly skilled people to do it right. And this quote right here, it just nails the core issue. Structured analysis is absolutely brilliant for building a solid logical foundation. But that same rock-solid structure can feel really stiff and rigid in a world that's all about being flexible and changing on the fly. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's pretty simple, actually. Structured systems analysis was the answer to that software crisis. It's a powerful way to take a chaotic, confusing problem and turn it into a clear, logical plan before you start building. And that really brings us to the big question for today, doesn't it? The ideas of understanding and planning are timeless for sure. But in our world of non-stop agile sprints and constant change, is this kind of detailed, upfront blueprint still the king? Or are we better off just building one floor at a time and figuring it out as we go? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.